Hello everyone and welcome to this series of Onshape tutorials. In this series, I will be showing you ways to use Onshape and giving you rundowns on different tools in Onshape to help you with your 3D modeling journey. This series will be primarily focused on using Onshape in means of a FRC team, so there will be many tools on here that will not be showcased as they will not be used for a FRC team. If you're wanting to learn how to use those tools, I would recommend just messing around and figuring out how to do it yourself. Other than that, I will be giving you many different tutorials throughout this series on how to use many different tools in Onshape. Hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome to part 5 in the series on tutorials for Onshape. So today what we're going to be working on is we're going to make our very first ever good old assembly. Definitely didn't forget the name. So, as you see, we're just going to come down here and right under where you create your partial, you can create an assembly. So, we're going to create us an assembly. How fun is that? And we're just going to call this one the first assembly. Actually, now we're going to call it assembly. Simple as that. So, assemblies are really fun because they can be very organized or very chaotic. So, as we said in the last video, with organizing, you can use folders. What I forgot to mention was you can put folders inside of your document as well using the little create new folder button here. You can use that to organize all of your sketches and all of your extrusions, but you can also use it here to organize your assemblies, because what assemblies do is if you come up here and you hit the little insert button, they allow you to pull any part that you have made into this document and put them together in unique ways. So if I take my advanced sketching part here, now I have it here, and if I left click, it's now been put in here, and if I hit check, it's now here, and I can manipulate it. So if I want to measure the distance of it, I click the little measure button, and then I can just click over here, and then I can click here, and I can see the distance between it based on whatever axes I want to look at. I can see all the distances here, but that's what we're here for today. That's just a little extra tidbit if you want to know about that. That's how you do measurements. What we're here for today is your assemblies. And so now that I have this part in here, we're going to learn about the different things you can do on assemblies. We're not going to learn about all of these. We're mostly going to learn about the fasten mate, the revolute, and the slider. The rest of them, not really going to use a whole lot other than this gear and the rack and pinion, but that's for when we talk about gears later. So now we have our part here, but I kind of need multiple parts to make this work. So I'm going to select this one, I'm going to hit Control C and Control V. Now I have 2 of them. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a fasten mate, but I'm going to connect it to a different piece. I'm going to get our block to connect it to. So what a fasten mate does is it basically just glues 2 pieces together. They will never come apart. And so I'm going to do that by selecting this edge here, and this is a very directional thing. Depending on whatever direction that little icon is facing will determine how your stuff goes together. So I want it to be facing towards me, so that then whenever I click on something, like if I go over here to our box and I click like here and this icon is facing towards me, it'll paste it like this, exactly how I want it. And now I hit this check, and we're just going to go and do the same thing with this other box over here. Sorry, it's not a box, but I don't really know what to call it. Our fun little shape is what I'm going to call it. And then I'm going to hit this check, and boom, now we have both of these. And these things are glued together. If I try to drag it, it moves the whole thing, not just one. Now, something you need to do is if you ever have parts that move, you need to make sure that you right click on one of the parts and hit this button here, fix. You can only fix one thing per assembly, but when you fix it, that makes it so it doesn't move. It is stuck there in space until you unfix it. So now if I try to drag this stuff around, it's not going to move anymore. You can see I've clicked it and I'm dragging my mouse around like crazy. Nothing's moving. So you need to make sure you do that whenever you have moving parts, or else it'll just move everything and not the moving part. So now we get to do the fun part. I'm going to put all these into a folder. I'm just going to call it the base. And I'm just going to put all of these parts in there. But first I'm going to move it up here, because if I don't do that, some things might break. So we're going to put everything in there. If you want to be extra fancy, you can just look at these things more in depth, but I like to in general hide my mate features unless I'm trying to troubleshoot. just so that it kind of saves me space over here. But now what we're going to do is we're going to insert another part. We'll take the one from random tools. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to do a revolute mate. So a revolute mate just makes two things spin. Now, something I want to point out with a revolute mate is it can be very weird. Because if you read this little description, it says your first selection serves the rotational point, and the second is the stationary point. Now, that can be very confusing and very weird. I myself still sometimes have a hard time with it. But usually, you select one point, and you tell it to go somewhere and it kind of spins. But if you have multiple on top of each other, you might have to flip them around over here by hitting this little reorder item and dragging them in a different order to get it to work properly. If it's not working, that would be the first thing I try to do. But let's get back here. You see how those two things are clipping into each other right now? The way to fix this is this beautiful button right here, flip primary axes. And as it says, it flips it. Now they're not clipping into each other, and it's just set here in the middle. And so if I hit the little check, and now I grab this boy, look at that, it spins. Wee! It spin. So now that we have a spinny boy, let's make one that slides. So let's grab another random part. Let's just grab, I don't want everything from organizing. If you want to grab one part from something like this, you click this little one here, and now you can grab individual parts. I'm going to grab part 5. So now we're going to use the slider mate. And so the slider mate is very specific. Your first one is going to be on the part that slides. Your second one is going to be on the part that does not. So I'm just going to very simply click here, and then we'll click like there. And so now if I tell it to do this, I can see how my stuff will move. And see, look at that, it slide. We're just going to flip it, do that, and boom, now it slide. How beautiful is that? Now, if you wanted it to slide a bit more like how something would actually slide, you're going to want to come to the edges of it, and then make sure that instead of pointing this way, it's pointing along that line like that. So then when you connect it to your part, which I'm going to move to connecting it up here, and you do the same thing there, I got to flip it out. You then get that it actually slides along that axis instead of just kind of like sliding in space. And so now I have this part here. And so now if I try to slide it, it'll slide, but you see it also spins that part. So you can kind of chain things together to get things that spin and that slide all at once. But that's very complicated, and I'll leave you to figure that out on your own, because that is something that is very specific. But that is our tutorial for the day, and hope you enjoyed.